Hey everyone, my name is Aurangzaib Khan, and I have chosen Nenets for the project we are doing. And to start with, the Nenets are the indigenous of Russian Arctic. They live in the northern part of Russian Arctic. Usually, their area is usually called Yamal. So that's the area where they live in. So yeah, the overview of presentation is like I'm gonna discuss who the Nenets are, where they live, and what's the importance of reindeers in their life, and how the new world affect them, like the oil and gas companies in their area, how they affect them, and other things we're gonna learn from this outcome of this presentation. That's is like how the global warming is affecting them, and is the government helping them to make their life better, and the problem they're facing because of the oil and gas companies, because these companies are working in their areas, so it's actually kind of directly affecting them because they're using their land. And that's a picture of in their natural habitat, in their natural like ecosystem where they live. So who are Nats? So Nats are the indigenous people of Russia. They live in the northern part we already discussed, and they're actually nomads in nature. So like they move from one place to another, and the like they migrate from plains. They live in the plains in summer, and then they migrate to the forest area. And the reason for this migration is actually reindeers, because they don't have much food to eat in summer in the plains, so that's why they have to move to the forest where they can get more food. And they live in the tents, and they eat raw fish, and even they also eat raw reindeer, and they actually boil the meat too, but they eat it raw too, and they also drink raw reindeer blood. And the minus 60 Fahrenheit is the net kind of common temperature over there. Yeah, so the religion they follow, that's actually like that. It's actually a shamanist, not the shamanist religion, but it has over like a lot of overlapping with the shamanist religion, where they try to contact with the spiritual world, and that's why they uh, worship a wooden idol, and because they think so the spirit reside in that, so that's why they worship some wooden idols. And they also offer sacrifices, and in the sacrifices they offer fish meat and reindeer meat, and that's the source I where I get it from. So for the clothing, yeah, because since they're heavily dependent on reindeer, so they make their clothes from reindeer skin, and usually like a four reindeer skin, like a four reindeers, their skin make a one coat, and like that's the coat he's he's wearing. And the name of this coat is Melista, what they call it, and it has a built-in hood and gloves. And from the outside it look like leather, and from inside it look like skin, reindeer skin. And they use this for different weather. If like if the Melista is worn out, they use it for the less colder weather, and the new Melista is used for like chilly weather. And if there is more cold, they just take another reindeer skin, and worn over this coat. Now coming to the tents where they live in. So these tents are called chums, and there are other names as well, but this is the one I've chosen. And the basic structure of that is like there's three poles, wooden poles that are connected together, and they're like tied up from the base. The base is top, and yep, and then they put like the remaining wood they put the remaining cloth. The cloth is also reindeer skin, and they put that cloth over it, and then other they put more poles around it and the skin, and then they tied it up together from the top. It usually take like them an hour or 2 hour or two, but like if it's uh, like a colder weather and they have to make it in a hurry, they can make it up in half an hour. That one is like a small one in the picture, and this one is kind of a bigger one, and even this one has a like a wooden floor. And yeah, so reindeer, like as we have discussed, these are they are the uh, essential part of their life. So they all depended on them even for transportation when they have to transport their stuff in summer. They use them to pull the cars and stuff as shown in the picture. And yeah, even they give reindeer in their marriages as a dowry. So whoever like if somebody is rich, he will have more reindeer. So like you can determine the status of the person by how many reindeers he has. Yeah. So we're gonna discuss some problems what they're facing right now in the while they're living in that area. So the first problem is like uh, to start with like is they actually by the occupation they're reindeer herders, and they also do fishing too. But in the case of fishing, the government has put restriction on like to catch some kind of like they have put some restriction. Well, I mean like they can only catch some kind of fish if they're catching the prohibited fish. They have to pay the fine to the government. So that's actually damaging their because that's the only two way they get their food from. So the other one is reindeer herding. So yeah, because like the oil and gas field that's working in their area. So once they drain the natural resources from the subsurface, the oil surface, the surface become infertile. It doesn't produce much food for their reindeer. So that's then as a result, their reindeers have to stay hungry or they start to die. So that's why it's not good for their occupation. So what trying to say is like that these oil and gases companies are actually affecting them in a bad way. Yeah, there's an article I was like it said like in 1998 there were 75 oil companies that were working in their area. And since the reindeer business is reindeer herding is kind of a local business, and oil and gas is kind of uh, is a like a global issue, so that's why government put more importance to the extracting oil from that area. And like since they live at the same place, those workers, oil workers and Nenets, so they have a lot of conflict between them. So there is a one example which I've given because like in their area because the oil workers are working, so there is a lot of poaching happening at that place. So the one such example is given where a guy tried to a guy killed a reindeer and then he took it off on a vehicle, but they called the military and they catch the guy and he has to pay the fine. But the point is over here because since they saw the guy, he has to pay the fine, but like there are many which they don't see, so they have to suffer in that way too. Global warming. So Because since they live close to the nature and they actually uh, see the effects firsthand. So they're because and they're like when they have to migrate, they have to cross a river, and that's called Obi River. So it usually get frozen by November, and they can in 2000. The article discusses about 2019. So usually that river got the river freezes in November, and they can cross the river, but but with the time now in like recent time it doesn't freeze that early. They have to wait till December until the river is frozen, and then they can migrate. They can cross over the river. But because since it's like as a result of global warming, it take more time to freeze, and they have to wait, and their renter doesn't have much food, so it's actually affecting them. And another thing is like usually the temperature is minus 30 degrees centigrade, but usually minus 50 degrees centigrade, but like in recent times it's going to minus 30, which is actually not good for them because like the reindeers they live in the cold weather, and in the colder weather they're not able to do much work because they get tired earlier. So that's actually directly affecting them, and moreover the drying lakes because as there's a permafrost in that area, and like as the global warming is happening, as a result of that permafrost is melting and it creates a lot of landsliding. As a result of landsliding, it takes half of it takes the lakes away, the natural lakes away. So yeah, that's a comment of the Nenets. That's a like in the summer when they come back, uh, because of that landsliding and stuff, half of the lakes were gone, and that's the link I get it from source. So the last part of the presentation is like, is the government helping them or not? So I had to go for like a 150 years before. At that time, Stalin was the leader in Russia. So at that time, they were not treated well. So I put in the heading as a residential school. It's kind of common with the current Canadian history because like they're like the Nance children were uh, taken away from their families and they were put in schools, and they were not allowed to speak their own language over there, and their families like the parents they were divided into the groups called brigades, and they were supposed to give the tax to the government in the form of reindeer meat. So, but right now, but that was a long time ago. But right now, these restrictions are not put on them, so they're living there in their natural, where in the natural plains where they live. And the other problem they're facing, the young adults when they try to move from their villages to the cities, they have to suffer because they didn't get much jobs, and then as a result they face a lot of mental health problems and alcoholism, but the government doesn't do anything to help them out with the employments. Yeah, the last thing I have to discuss is the Yamal mega project. It's actually the oil and gas project, but it started in 1990s, and in 2012 it produces its first outcome from the Ben Bovenko field, where they produced the first gas supplies. And the aim of this project is to take out a billion cubic meters of gas and ship it and pipe it to Western Europe. and that's a picture of that Yamal project. It's quite big. Thanks.